I've heard that it could be helpful to understand that nothing can happen outside of God's will, and that there's only one will, and that I am that will. It's a lot of responsibility. Also, a lot of power. And that power, as I understand, only comes through humility. That's the trick. You can't grasp it. It's not something you can hold on to or push around or control. That kind of power comes through surrender. Raise your hand if you are or have ever been an idealist, and you have learned over time to stop telling everybody what you're going to be doing beforehand, because you've learned that a lot of your ideal plans never really come to action. So that's a point of accountability in some sense for me. Like I've just learned that there's really not a lot to trust here. I'm gonna have to trust the deeper story. So yeah, that idealism, that ideology, I mean, we have to adopt it. It's part, and we're always going to be clinging to ideology in some sense. It's how we kind of, it's context, kind of like the faces of our great teachers, become these icons of the knowledge that they seem to represent, that evolution of consciousness and humanity. When I was 22 years old, I gave myself to the teachings of the one we call Jesus. I did that because when I met Jesus, I had a consciousness change. Literally, the greens were greener and the blues were bluer. The context into which I was born, which was Bible Belt Christianity, could not hold that birth for very long. It's still like this. Love is born into the institution. Love is born into the law. Love is born into the status quo, and the status quo crucifies it. And somehow in this is the great mystery. This is why we're told to love our enemies, to pray for those who hurt us, to not be surprised when we hear all sorts of crazy shit being said about us, or to not be surprised when we just suffer. When one commits themselves to the teachings of a cosmic teacher, those teachings will grind you up. And that's what these teachings are. Love your neighbor. Okay, now love your enemy. Pray for those who hurt you. If someone slaps you on the cheek, turn the other. If someone forces you to carry their pack for a mile, carry it too. And there are these great moments where when we sit at the teacher's feet and we hear these teachings and we know of their truth, but then there's a great rub when we go out into the world, right? When we start getting hurt and disappointed. It may be that Jesus would want to free us from Christianity today. It may be that Jesus would want to free us from any institution, any system that has our allegiance in a deeper place than our devotion to that love that we saw in that great teacher. Alan Watts already said all of this stuff 50 years ago. If our practice we have a long way to go, don't we? You can only see yourself in me, and I in you. Travelin' Trav is a singer, songwriter, poet, essayist, metaphysical therapist, teacher, healer, father, and an advocate for the homeless and neurodivergent. He is an encourager, a deeply flawed human being, and a somewhat reluctant, yet grateful, follower of the one that we have called Jesus. Trav's working practice is now an integration of his diverse career experiences, which includes time in the military, police, academia, and physical therapy. His personal journey to overcome genetically inherited trauma makes him an expert on mental health issues and trauma recovery. Humanity is making the leap into the non-dual. We are moving beyond the binary into a more fluid state. This is evident in our most recent explorations of gender identification. In the depths of Christ, there is no male or female. Travelin' Trav is developing educational materials which encourage the alignment of our rational and mystical senses. These educational tools will help us to manage this species-wide transition in our consciousness. Together, we are developing a new language to describe this caramelized, dystopian world in which we live. Because we are stumbling toward our next evolutionary threshold, we must learn to both sing the blues and transcend the oppression that inspired the blues in the first place. We rise above our tendency to manifest as either the oppressed or the oppressors. Labor and the Expression of Worth is Trav's compassionate philosophical container which creates the necessary inner space to hold multiple perspectives simultaneously. Labor and the Expression of Worth is a context in which we may align our work with one another around our deepest common values. We must educate, strengthen, and encourage one another. Strengthening a tribe member deepens a tribe. Deep tribes can feed the world. It is essential that the consciousness level of our species is deepened. We need a new perspective from which to solve the diverse and many problems that humanity has created for itself. In order to raise our consciousness, we must encourage deep communication between the generations. Trav is reaching out to the generations who came before him and after him. Thank you for supporting Travelin' Trav by contributing monthly through Patreon. Every little bit helps. May we discover our deepest common values together and align our efforts appropriately. The future of our species depends on it. Strengthening a tribe member deepens a tribe. Depth tribes feed the world. Sincerely, Travis Irwin.